Don't move to Johns Creek, Georgia until you watch this video. Johns Creek is one of the best Atlanta suburbs, and there are so many people who want to live in this area, but there are some parts about Johns Creek that you really need to be aware of before you move here. Of course, one of our biggest priorities here on the channel is to make sure that you have the whole picture when it comes to any one of these suburbs or cities that you're considering moving to. Sure, there are a lot of good things about these cities, but we also want to make sure that you have the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. So let's talk about some of the things that have to do with Johns Creek that you really need to be aware of, especially in those first few weeks of living here. One of the biggest factors that affects life in Johns Creek is that it is in Fulton County. Also in Fulton County are suburbs like Alpharetta and Sandy Springs and Atlanta, and then all the way to the south side would be cities like East Point, College Park, Union City. All of these are in Fulton County, and so this is one of the largest counties in all of Georgia, perhaps the largest. I mean, it goes as far north as Milton and as far south as Chattahoochee Hills. And if you were to tell someone who was not from this area that those two cities are in the same county in Georgia, they would probably be shocked. I mean, the difference between Atlanta and Milton is a stark contrast. Those two cities are nothing alike, but they are in the same county. And so Johns Creek is one of these cities that's in Fulton County, and that certainly affects a lot of what it's like to live here. And one of those things is naturally that if you are going to be living in Johns Creek and working in Atlanta, you are going to have a hell of a commute, especially if you're going during rush hour traffic. It's going to be a long commute with a lot of traffic, and Johns Creek isn't really in a part of Metro Atlanta that has easy interstate access. Like most of these suburbs that are in Metro Atlanta have that interstate access. Alpharetta, you can access Highway 400 directly from Old Milton Parkway. Or Marietta, you can access Interstate 75 from multiple places in the city. But Johns Creek is a little bit different in that it is kind of off of the interstate or off of some of these main roads. And so there isn't easy access to get on the interstate system. So that means in addition to that interstate traveling and traffic, you also have some of the local roads and the traffic there that you'll have to deal with. That means you can easily add an additional 10 to 15 minutes to that already long ass commute. And so this is certainly a major part of living in Johns Creek. Many people who live in this city, they work in Atlanta and they deal with that traffic because there are so many great things about living in Johns Creek. And by no means am I saying that you shouldn't live here, but I am saying that there are some costs to living here in Johns Creek that we need to talk about. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living. We put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs around Atlanta. Another big one that has to do with Johns Creek is the public schools here, and everybody knows that the public schools in Johns Creek are some of the best in the entire state, but this also comes with a lot of pressure academically for the kids, the students there. And so if you are looking for one of these public schools, but you don't want that kind of academic pressure and it can kind of be a lot for some of the kids, then you might want to reconsider living in Johns Creek, because this is one of the best public school districts and there certainly is a lot of that pressure. In addition to that, you may also find that some of the classrooms are packed, a lot of kids in these classrooms. And so this is another part of living in Johns Creek. Excellent public schools, and a lot of people want to live here, and so you have a lot of kids going to these schools, big classroom sizes. And so if you're looking for that smaller, more personal kind of school experience for your child or your student, then Johns Creek might not be the right one. Without a doubt, one of the best parts of Johns Creek is this kind of suburban feel, the vibe of living here. This is one of the things that brings so many people to this city. If you're thinking about moving to Johns Creek, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm a local real estate agent here in the area, and I'd be happy to help, even if you just have a question about what it's like to live here. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help, but that kind of suburban vibe and that kind of feeling that you get, like typically Johns Creek for the most part is this like a bunch of neighborhoods, a bunch of residential area. It's mostly residential, but then you've got those commercial areas that are kind of peppered throughout the city. Like at the major intersections of the roads, you've got the big box stores, the grocery stores, or the Home Depot, or the Target, the Whole Foods. These kinds of things you can kind of find obviously outside of the neighborhoods on the more commercial major roads, but the majority of it has that kind of neighborhood feel to it. And so while this is excellent and this is something that many people are looking for, what it doesn't have is that kind of southern charm, that southern hospitality that you find in many other parts of Georgia. And Georgia is really, this is one of the highlights of living here in Georgia. This is one of my favorite parts about living in Georgia, is having that southern charm and that southern hospitality, and the people are very friendly. And the people are friendly in Johns Creek, but it is kind of different. It's less southern charm in Johns Creek, and it's more master plan community suburbia in Johns Creek. So two very different kind of feelings, very different lifestyles, especially for people who are not from Georgia. Maybe you come from a different state or different country. Very often people think of Georgia as being that kind of southern charm, that kind of small town feel that you kind of see in the movies about Georgia. I don't know what movies there are about Georgia, but maybe you see this like on TV or the news or something, that like Georgia's kind of got this small town feel. But it's not that way in Johns Creek. It's more of a modernized suburban area in Johns Creek. And so if you're looking for that southern charm, Johns Creek is not the place. But if you're looking for that kind of modernized suburbia, Johns Creek is possibly the best suburb in all of Georgia for that. Now, one thing that you certainly need to know, because so many people want to move to Johns Creek, there's a lot of demand for homes in Johns Creek. And so the cost of homes has gone up significantly in this city. This may be the highest average costing homes are in this city in Johns Creek. Typically, you're looking at about $800,000 to $900,000 for a home in Johns Creek, and then you can probably find homes as low as about $700K. Anything lower than $700K, you kind of might be dealing with some fixer-uppers, and then certainly you're going to find homes into the millions. And so you have a bit of a range in Johns Creek, but this is going to be one of the most expensive suburbs to live in when it comes to the price of homes. And then also there's a lot of demand. And so like what I mean is there are certain parts of Georgia where the demand is going down and it's a buyer's market and homes are staying on the market for a super long time. Johns Creek is still kind of got that high demand. And so for the homes that are move-in ready, that look amazing, that have been well taken care of, that don't have any kind of structural or foundation problems, those homes are still going off the market pretty quickly in Johns Creek. And that's because so many people want to live there, and it is an amazing place to live. Again, I'm not trying to dissuade you from Johns Creek, just trying to make sure you got the whole picture. Another big thing that many people are wanting when it comes to finding homes in Johns Creek is the HOAs. The HOAs here do a great job of taking care of the neighborhoods and preserving the home values. And I am very much in favor of the HOAs. I know many people, especially from out of state, are looking for the homes that are not in an HOA because they don't want to deal with the pain in the ass Karen who's like being difficult with your grass size and the size of your bushes and all that stuff. Totally understandable, but unfortunately in Johns Creek, I'd say about 90 to 95% of the homes are in an HOA. And so they aren't quite as strict as what I have heard from other states, but they are still very prideful. They have a lot of pride for their neighborhood. And so they are kind of difficult sometimes, these HOAs. But again, pros and cons. While the HOA members may be kind of difficult in these neighborhoods in Johns Creek, I'm totally in favor of this. They do such a great job of taking care of the neighborhood, and this is what preserves the home values in Johns Creek, are these HOAs that take care of the neighborhood. And so they do an excellent job of maintaining things like the pools and the clubhouses, the tennis courts. Maybe some of these neighborhoods have golf courses. And so all of that comes with the HOAs, and this is a regular part of living in Johns Creek. Also, you should know there's a lot of development going on here in this city. There's maybe off of like Medlock Bridge Road, there's quite a bit of construction. They're regularly trying to improve the roads or widen the sidewalks, and they have all kinds of development and construction going on here. And so if you are thinking about moving to Johns Creek, you want to take notice of like where the home is in relation to the construction that's happening. This is a regular part of Johns Creek. They do a great job of taking care of the city, but this also means that there are regularly some kind of construction projects going on in the city. And then also, this is not really a city where you're going to find like nightlife, clubbing, or like super late going to a restaurant or something like that. You'll find restaurants, plenty of restaurants and shopping here in Johns Creek, but they are going to close at about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And so this is not an area where you're going to find super late things to do. It's more like a family friendly kind of suburb. And so certainly something to think about. Another city that is very similar to Johns Creek, that has so many excellent public schools, the excellent community, you know, very similar to Johns Creek, is Alpharetta. And actually Alpharetta neighbors Johns Creek. The two are very close to each other. In fact, Johns Creek used to be part of Alpharetta. They used to be one city, so to speak, but Johns Creek recently annexed themselves away from Alpharetta. Not recently, I think it was about 20 years ago or so that they did this. And so they've kind of separated themselves and developed their own city programs, police department, fire department, things like that. And so they have their own city now, Johns Creek, but naturally Alpharetta is very similar to Johns Creek. And so these two are often compared, people who are thinking about moving to Johns Creek. They're also very often considering Alpharetta, and there's no wonder why. These are like the two best suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. And so if you're thinking about which one is the right one for you, there's a lot of different things to weigh there to figure out which one is the right one. So I've made an entire video outlining the differences between Alpharetta and Johns Creek to help you figure out which one is the best one. And you can watch that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.